What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the KauligNation pod, and we're doing this a little earlier than I thought we would be, and I don't just mean the podcast, but the specific topic as well. Joining me on this little short update video, if you will, is Ryan. What's going on, man?
Hey, Sean, how you doing? First off, I would like to start off by saying this new intro song is badass. Man, it gets my juices flowing to talk about some KauligNation topics of the day, and I think we've got a huge topic today. Justin Haley, man, is gone, like he was never here. Shocked.
Yeah, I guess we can start hashtag Ryan got Justin fired. Right?
I almost feel bad because, 2 weeks ago at Daytona, I got pretty upset with Mr. Haley about not helping his teammate on the last lap, and I messaged you all pissed off saying, "Oh my God, Haley just cost himself his ride at Kaulig Racing." And 2 weeks later, my premonition came true. Just beyond shocked. Truly, truly unbelievable this happened today.
So there's two lines of thought for me here, man. As not just a NASCAR fan and a podcast co-host with you, but as the Kaulig Racing fan, and that is, I'm bummed Justin's gone. You put a lot of investment into him, and I like. As soon as AJ joined the team, I started paying attention more. They got closer, and following their relationship and just them as teammates has been a lot of fun. I'm always checking in on Justin during races on the Instagram. So yeah, like there's a level of just disappointment that is he's only 24 years old, and his time at Kaulig Racing has come to an end. And then there's the other side of it that's, okay, well, now begins however long of speculation until the 31 seat is filled. I've seen some truly, I'm just going to be blunt, moronic, stupid things on Twitter. And just let me get this out of the way. I promise this won't take the whole episode. But why is it whenever there's any rumors regarding Kaulig Racing in terms of NASCAR free agency, it's either A, they're too poor, or B, they don't even own their charters, they just lease them, they'll be dropping down to one car, and there's so much that I'm like, wow, this sounds a lot like last year when you had conspiracy theorists trying to say that Kaulig was going to go down to one car. So let me get this out of the way right now. Kaulig is not going down to one car. They literally spent a shit ton of money in the off season to increase their development of race cars on the track and off the track, including hiring, I think it was upwards of 30 or 40 new staff. They went from like 62 to well over 100. They're not downscaling here. They're not going down to one car. I don't know if they were blindsided or not. I have no idea. I would hope not, and we'll get into that. But Ryan, I just wanted to just dispel this off the top. Like, I get it. This team's not Gibbs or Hendrick or Penske or whomever. But I'm just so sick of whenever there's a rumor like this, it's, Kaulig must be downsizing, or, Kaulig doesn't even own their charters. It's just like people making shit up. And then the problem is the wrong people read it, and it spreads like wildfire.
Well, that's social media for you in a nutshell in 2023, and it's true. There's a lot of things going around today. There's two topics that I want to quickly touch on. First one is what you just brought up. Yes, it's true. The number 31 charter at one point in the past was owned by Justin Haley's uncle.
Correct.
Something Braun, I think, is his last name. This is true. However, that charter doesn't magically go with Justin Haley wherever Justin Haley goes. That charter was purchased by Matt Kaulig and Kaulig Racing, and that charter will continue to stay with Kaulig Racing going forward without Justin Haley. Could they sell it for a gobsmack amount of money? Absolutely, they could, but they won't. It is a two-car operation. It will continue to be a two-car operation going into 2024, and they will find a driver to replace Justin Haley. The second topic I want to touch on that's really irked me today, and listen, we're both AJ Allmendinger fans. I think most people that listen to us know our heart lies with AJ Allmendinger. But this is not a homer take here, ladies and gentlemen. AJ Allmendinger is not, I repeat, not going back to the Xfinity Series in 2024. Okay, let's clear the air right now and get this one out of the way. AJ Allmendinger will continue to drive the 16 car in 2024 at the Cup level for Kaulig Racing. Yes, the option was there for AJ to go back to the Xfinity Series. It probably is still on the table if AJ truly wanted to take it. But I believe we have dispelled those rumors many times over with AJ's own words over the last month that he is content driving the car and he will do what Matt Kaulig asks him to do. And Matt Kaulig will ask him to drive the Cup car in 2024. So let's end that right here.
The only way he's in the Xfinity car next year is if it has anything to do with being a new father and maybe things aren't going great. And frankly, that's none of our business to even speculate about. Obviously, we wish him and his wife a safe delivery, and it's a huge time for their family, and it could be happening any day now. But yeah, if Allmendinger goes to Xfinity, it is not because of performance. Let's just clear that up now. This is a guy that, not even if he did great in the first 5 races, if he wouldn't have had the apocalyptic 5 race or 6 race start he had, we're talking about a guy who's probably 12th or 13th in points right now. So yeah, he's not going anywhere. And last year, I don't know if anybody caught, but when they were talking to Kyle Busch, it was never, oh, well, maybe AJ Allmendinger isn't coming up to Cup. Ryan and I were on this podcast, previously known as the Trophy Hunters podcast, just constantly beating the same note that AJ Allmendinger is going to the Cup Series. Like, it's not a if, and it's a matter of when, and it happened. And the dude's, 41? If AJ wants to race the next half decade, he can. He's not a guy that's terribly out of shape. And I'm not saying he races that entire decade in Cup, but they have something with him. And if there's an interesting Justin Marks interview out there where he touches on anybody who wants the road course racing and the road course variety to stop is going to be sorely disappointed in where NASCAR is going the next few years, which raised my eyebrows. And that's just an interview he gave in the last week. So yeah, there's just a lot of crappy takes out there, and I would say Haley leaving just cements it even more. You're not going to replace 2 seats.
No, and let's be honest with you, there aren't very many quality options available to replace Justin Haley. I touched on this on our last show, that when you look at the calculus of who you can possibly get to fill the seat with, experience or talent, there aren't many choices that were better than Justin Haley as it was, because as Justin Haley has now 2 full years of Cup experience plus a few part-time seasons. He's only 24 and he's only improving. That is hard to replace already. And if you want to try to fill 2 seats, it's not happening. The team would be going drastically the wrong direction. And to be honest with you, there's a strong chance that whoever they get to fill the 31 car will be, in my humble opinion, a lesser talent than where Justin Haley is now. So we could be taking a step back as it is. So I think there's it just makes no sense that AJ Allmendinger is not being replaced.
Yeah, it's not happening unless AJ wants it to happen. That is literally the only way that happens. Look, so Justin Haley, and let's go through this step by step here, as we only have about 10 minutes. Justin Haley signs a multi-year deal with Rick Ware Racing, which obviously gets some head scratching going on. But I just want to point out a couple of things about Rick Ware Racing. Is if you look at their performance on track specifically this year, it's significantly improved over the last couple of years. And I'm not saying they're the level of Kaulig. They're definitely not even close. But some interesting things I learned about Rick Ware Racing today, and these are things that have happened over the course of this year, is they have a alliance with RFK, and they have actually, I believe the term was invested more into that alliance. If you want to dumb it down, they've upgraded. So tier 1 might have consisted of some technical support. Now, to my understanding, the alliance, I don't know if it takes place right now or at the beginning of next year, but it sounds a lot more like Rick Ware Racing will be the Kaulig Racing of RFK as Kaulig is to RCR. So immediately, I would think that piques Justin's eyebrows a bit, at least thinking or considering the possibility, hey, I might get more attention here. He's thrown Chevy under the bus a couple of times recently. They also brought in Tommy Baldwin to be their new director of race operations. So, and apparently they've invested a little bit more in the pit crew. So, Rick, like, I appreciate stories like this because guess what? Ryan and I were talking a year ago, and I was adamant that either these guys or I think there was another one that was out there should lose their charter if they're not going to invest more and try. Well, here's them investing because they definitely paid to get Justin Haley to come in. And as much as everybody wants to shit on Rick Ware Racing, if you want to improve your race team, you got to take steps forward. Well, I would say a much bigger alliance with RFK, bringing in Tommy Baldwin and signing a guy like Justin Haley. As much as I'm a Kaulig Racing guy, man, I'm a huge fan of all of these moves for them.
They are absolutely. They have been excellent moves, and there has been a noticeable improvement in their performance. Now, there's definitely still got a long ways to go, and we've seen technical alliances in the past where the contracting team, while they are paying money for the alliance and the technical support, don't really see the results. So I'm definitely going to take a wait and see approach to see if they continue to improve, or if, frankly, if RFK continues to improve and that resource is actually valuable. I think it is. But I understand the decision. I think also looking at it, I could see Justin trying to angle himself to possibly replace Brad Keselowski in 4 or 5 years potentially when he hangs up his helmet. So I think that's certainly his line of thought, and maybe he felt like Kaulig and Chevy wasn't the direction that would give him those opportunities in the future. And then also let's consider the next gen car. We've seen teams, Front Row Motorsports with Michael McDowell. Honestly, Corey LaJoie and Spire Motorsports have taken a step forward this year. There are certainly opportunities for all these smaller teams to make leaps. They might not reach the status of playoff contenders, or clearly they won't be a Joe Gibbs Racing or Penske Racing, but they have opportunities to run well, and that's something we couldn't say a few years ago. But at the same token, Kaulig is a step ahead of those organizations, and they're only in their second full-time season, and they should continue to improve over the next 3 to 5 years as well, to a point where they could be contending regularly for wins. So I think, when you look at the trajectory, yes, I see where Justin Haley, his train of thought was, but I feel like Kaulig Racing as a whole still would have provided better opportunities over the next half decade. And whoever we get to replace him in the 31 will have those opportunities to win races in the future.
As a Kaulig fan, I'm hoping they're not blindsided by this. I don't believe anybody has said anything about this, which makes me kind of wonder if they were. Justin's spoken on it today, but Kaulig, I believe, has been mum on the subject. That being said, Bob Potterath also revealed today that they have been actively talking to other drivers. He dropped Austin Hill, and then others have name dropped SVG. We've talked Chandler Smith. For me, and I will go back to Haley, and actually, hang on, let me just take a step back here for a second. Justin Haley is an excellent super speedway racer in terms of not having the best stuff and still being able to get up there and run in the top 10 and usually keep his nose clean until late in the race. He is very, very good at doing that. Same with AJ Allmendinger. So Rick Ware gains there for sure. Hell, if I was Rick Ware, I'd be asking Ryan Newman if he wants to come drive the other car full time and just let the two of them see if they can grow the team a bit. But that may or may not happen. Justin has shown improvement on the road courses. It's been more noticeable in Xfinity, but a couple of the road courses he's good at. On the Cup side, he has shown that he's been able to put up some numbers. I think of Kodal last year. Sorry, not Kodal last year. The Charlotte Roval. There's a couple of road courses where he's been, top 10 in and been solid, but I just have to stress a lot of that is setup. Like, you need the driver too, but if you don't have the setup in the car, and you can go look at how well Rick Ware Racing has done on road courses. I know they've had Joey Hand in there a few times, but their record is not good. If you don't have the setup in the car, it doesn't matter how talented the driver is, because if you're trying to make up for a lack of horsepower and just you're not, the bigger teams, you got to rely on A, nailing the setup, and B, driver talent. And a prime example of that is AJ Allmendinger when he was with RPM, always ran good at Dover. Always. He hasn't ran good there basically since. And there's other examples where a driver leaves teams and he can't bring that success over to a new team. Not saying Justin can't be successful. I absolutely think he can. But I've seen some people already going out there, Rick Ware is going to be guaranteed like 6 top 10s next year just on road courses. I'm like, it's just not that cut and dry. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. And, Rick Ware Racing is going to improve. But let's look at their point standings. They're 32nd, 34th this year, and they've finished below 30 for the last 3 years running. When we say improvement, we're talking 25th, 26th. And I think Justin Haley is certainly talented enough to bring that team to that level. And he will bust out some top 20s, top 15s, and probably will score top 10s. But yeah, it's going to be a slow improvement. It will not be an overnight thing. So it's, as you said, there's a lot of car involved, and we know that across any spectrum, whether you're getting in a Joe Gibbs car or a Kaulig car. In racing and auto sport, your car is probably 75% of what makes it go. So I root for Justin Haley's success. I do know he will improve that team, but it will not be as significant as I think some people think it will. Now, the flip side of that is he's only 24, and he will only get better. Driving, a driver's prime career doesn't really kick off until their early 30s. So as he gets better, the team will get better.
Let's move on to who will drive the 31 for Kaulig Racing. I'm going to make a statement now and say that you see 3 other individuals in our thumbnail to the right of the screen. I legitimately believe there is a 99% chance, 99, that it's one of those 3 guys. Frankly, because there's not a whole lot of other options out there that make a lot of sense. I'm sorry, you're not bringing in Eric Almirola, even if he was to be available, over any of these guys. You're just not. There's some other guys. Maybe they'd look at a Michael McDowell, but I would assume Front Row Motorsports will lock him up. To me, it's these 3, Ryan. I posted on Twitter earlier that I thought SVG makes some sense. AJ actually just did an interview recently where he's like, sometimes you just got to know what your strengths are. And as much as you want to get better where you're weaker, sometimes it's just as important to get as strong as you possibly can where you're already strong so you can be almost like the best at it. And if you have AJ and SVG, if SVG can, even be anywhere close to where he was at Chicago on the other road courses, then you have something. And I've seen some people saying this guy's already in his early 40s. He's not. He's 34 years old. So yeah, he's 10 years older than Justin Haley. But still, I think if you're bringing in SVG, you're bringing him in either because Matt Kaulig's comfortable with him being in the leaf filter car, or more likely he already has some sponsor or backer that's willing to give him some money to go race in North America. And that's what it sounds like, according to Adam Stern. It sounds like there's already some money in his pocket to go find a ride. I'm not saying it's going to be a 26 race deal or anything like that, but hey, if you're bringing 10 races of primary sponsorship to any team, teams are going to be, looking at that and going, hey, that's a start. That's something we already don't have. Austin Hill makes sense, a lot of sense. And the thing with Austin Hill for me is he might have a higher upside than Haley. I'm not sure. You're just going off of Xfinity. He's had more success in Xfinity than Haley has. He takes the RCR car and runs up front most of the time. He's really good on super speedways, a lot like Haley. And so there's already some familiarity there. Also, unless RCR buys another charter, there's no pathway to the Cup Series for him. The flip side to that is Kaulig even with Chevy next year? I don't know. And then the last one would be Chandler Smith. If it comes down to him and his sponsors that came with him this year are willing to increase their sponsorship to put him in a cup car, then maybe they rush him. But the best thing for Chandler, in my opinion, is at least 1 and probably 2 more years in Xfinity. Milk him and really make him earn his racing stripes so that when he does come up, he has all the confidence in the world. Ryan, your take on those three, and do you have anybody else? I know 99% is a high number, but I really don't see it being someone that's not one of these three guys.
So I'm going to start with saying I think you're pretty much spot on. I do think it'll probably be one of these three individuals. But the name that has just been filtering through my head all day long, and from a talent perspective, I think there's a lot of talent to be tapped in this driver. So you said Michael McDowell a second ago. Yeah, I don't think Michael McDowell, but I am thinking Todd Gilliland. I think Todd Gilliland is an interesting prospect that I would personally be willing to consider for the role. We know Zane Smith is on the fast track to Cup. He's under contract with Front Row Motorsports, and most likely will get his opportunities sooner than later, which leaves Todd Gilliland on the outside looking in. And Todd Gilliland is now completing his second full-time season in Cup, similar to Justin Haley. And he has put together some really strong performances. He's a bit inconsistent. He definitely has some bad weeks, but he's also shown a lot of talent for those driving those front row cars. So I think Todd Gilliland is at least an interesting name I personally want to keep an eye on. Realistically, he probably doesn't bring funding because it's one of the reasons he was taken out of the front row car for 5 races this year, because they didn't have funding for him. So that's probably a reason that he won't have an opportunity, but it's a name I like.
I don't know if you were going to touch on this or not. I didn't mention funding. Bob Pockras said today it's believed Kaulig prefers someone with funding. That doesn't mean they're going to, go for a pay for it. Landon Castle, if he was available and had funding, is not taking this ride. Obviously, they want someone with talent too that can be an anchor for the team. I didn't know this, but Austin Hill's sponsor is his sponsor, not an RCR sponsor. So he has funding now. There's a big difference between funding Xfinity and Cup, as we've talked about in the past. But the fact that he has funding too makes me kind of go, yeah, if I was a betting man, I'm probably going Austin Hill number 1, and then SVG number 2, Chandler Smith 3. My personal preference is SVG, but continue on your thoughts on the rest.
Yeah. So I think, let's looking at these 3 drivers. I'm going to start with SVG. You said he's 34 years old. And I said a moment ago, a driver's prime is in their early 30s. So if you're, want to look at it from a perspective of getting a driver who's driving at an exceptionally high level, we know SVG is. He just went out and stomped the field at Chicago. He's a multi-time supercars champion in Australia. Clearly, he's an exceptionally talented wheelman, and he's right where he needs to be in terms of his caliber. I think he would be an excellent candidate to put in the car. I mean, obviously the big question mark would be how would he run on ovals, something he's never done with any sort of regularity before. There would certainly be a steep learning curve on that front. But when you have the talent, clear, noticeable talent that SVG has, I think it's seriously worth a risk to bring him into the fold if it's possible. Obviously, he's running another race with Trackhouse here in a few weeks, and if I was a betting man, he would. My assumption is he's probably going to drive a third Trackhouse car in 2024. Whether that's full time or part time, I'm not sure, but most likely that's where he ends up. But if Kaulig has the ability to go get him and he has some funding from his supercar team, i.e. Red Bull, because he's sponsored by Red Bull, I think that is a no-brainer if it's a possibility. But most realistically, I tend to agree Austin Hill's the name that's been floated around the most. He's got a couple years of Xfinity under his belt. Clear super speedway ace. He races well at the other ovals, but he hasn't punched a victory yet. I just look at Austin Hill and say, this is just Justin Haley 2.0, and that's nothing wrong with that. Austin Hill and Justin Haley, I think, are both really talented. I just feel like we're starting over because Justin Haley has 2 full years of Cup experience. You bring Austin Hill into the fold and make him the driver of the 31, and now we're waiting 2 more years to see how he progresses. And most likely he'll progress at a similar platform as Haley. So I guess that would be neutral decision for me. I wouldn't be against it. I think Hill certainly brings a higher upside, but it's going to take a while to tap into. But if he has the funding or has partial funding, as you mentioned, realistically, I think that's probably the strong leader in the clubhouse. And Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith drives for Kaulig in our Xfinity program. I have taken a particular interest in Chandler this year, and I love Chandler. I think Chandler is a superstar, not just a star, a superstar. I think he is capable of winning championships at the Cup level. I just don't know if he's ready. It pains me to say this. I think this happened 1 year too soon. If this was a year from now, I would say, yep, put Chandler in the car, let's go. I feel like he still is a little raw. He's really good at the 1.5 mile tracks. That's kind of his bread and butter. He won at Richmond, so we know he can win at the short track. There's clear areas where he needs to improve, and I just don't know if putting him in the 31 car is the opportunity he needs to succeed. But if it comes down to it, if you ask me today, would I rather have Austin Hill or Chandler Smith in the car? I would say Chandler Smith because he's the future of the organization in my mind. And I also look at it, let's reference Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs only ran 1 year in the Xfinity Series before getting called up. And has he blown the doors off of the Cup Series this year? No. But he's been really solid, and he's getting reps. He's only going to get better. And when you look at this next-gen car, it's so different from the Xfinity car. I don't know how many, if the Xfinity car racing in it an extra year will even be valuable when making the transition to Cup. So I could see them maybe moving on with Chandler and just putting him into the deep end and telling him to swim. And, knowing that there might be some struggles in the first year, but hoping it pays off in the future.
So I think I would have to say Austin Hill has a little more upside than Justin Haley. And that's with the nugget of not having seen Austin Hill in the Cup Series on any sort of regular basis. The second he goes up to the Cup Series and you see his first 5 or 6 races, and if he's, running mid to late 20s, then, it's probably where you expect someone. Gregson is probably the comparison I would look at most. And he's in his, I guess, first full Cup season, even though he ran some with Kaulig last year. And Gregson's having a bloody awful year. Like, he is downright terrible. And I don't like the Ty Gibbs comparison because the Gibbs equipment is just so superior to whatever these guys are going to be stepping into. I'm kind of with you though. Like, at the end of the day, it's like At best, Austin Hill might end up being a slight upgrade from Justin Haley. Will you get it right away? You just don't know. Like pure gamble. Chandler Smith, I think, can be a significant upgrade in time over Justin Haley, but I don't think he's ready yet. There are certain tracks that I've seen him at this year in Xfinity where I would just like to see him get more seat time in a car and then prepare him for the big time. So for me, your money guy is, hey, you just lost Justin Haley. I hope you lost him for a good reason. And I hope that reason's SVG. I just look at Austin Hill and he's bringing in some money. And if, I think the sponsor's Bennett. Is that it? Bennett? I don't know.
That is correct, Bennett.
Is
Yes.
it Bennett? Okay. If they're willing to come up here and throw 14 or 16 races on the cup car and you think you're getting comparable talent to Justin Haley, then I kind of see why you make that move. Financially, you're bringing in way more money than Heavenly Filter on the car. So I'll be fine with any one of these three. I won't be fine if it's not one of these three. And I can't agree with. You mentioned Todd Gilliland earlier. Definitely potential. Would love to see him in an Xfinity car for Kaulig full time. But I would not. To me, that would be a step backwards. And that's not Todd's fault. Just doesn't have the seat time.
Final thoughts? I can't disagree with you. I mean, we saw a similar path with John Hunter Nemechek, where he came up to the Cup Series and then basically started over. I think Todd Gilliland definitely got the call up too soon. But with that said, he, I think, has held his own quite admirably and shown a lot of skill in several races. So, whether let's put Todd Gilliland to the back burner, but let's Todd Gilliland, Austin Hill, Chandler Smith. Any of those three, I feel, are going to be in a very similar boat. You're bringing them in knowing that there is room for improvement and there's going to be a learning curve. So really, I think it's just a matter of who has funding, who they think has the ability to grow and potentially become a regularly race winning, championship contending driver. SVG, I think, is the goal, the pipe dream. I guess maybe not a pipe dream, but is really who we should be striving for in terms of raw talent. He would bring the most to the table the quickest and make Kaulig a race winning team immediately. So we'll see. I definitely think Kaulig has a plan. I made this comment to you earlier. Matt Kaulig is a very accomplished businessman, and I think he looks into the future and sees where the direction he wants his organizations to go. And I don't think this move was made lightly. And I believe they have a direction in mind, and we'll just have to wait and see what that direction is.
Yeah, time will tell what way they end up going. I think SVG is the guy you go for, though. He's 34 years old, and you know what? I don't think he's going to go onto these ovals and be running 34th or 33rd in Kaulig equipment. He might be running 28th, 29th, and you just got to let him, get his feet wet. Ambrose figured it out. Carpentier, to some extent, figured it out. These guys can figure it out. And you know what? If you're going to trade not good on a chunk of ovals, although I still think road course experts thrive on certain oval tracks. But if you're not going to, I would trade that for being good if there's 6 or if there's 7 Cup road courses next year. I'll take a guy that's basically a shoe-in for a top 10 in every one of those, and possibly contend for wins. Why the hell not? Why not be the team to beat on road courses? Last time I checked, that's still a pathway to the playoffs.
Absolutely, it is. They would lock it down. They would lock road courses down. Between AJ and SVG, one of them would win a race on a road course. You could almost take it to the bank. So, and that gets you into the playoffs, right? That gets you to the promised land. One win is all it takes.
More attention, more sponsorship.
Exactly. And if you got the best road course duo on planet Earth, I think you got to take the opportunity and put that on the table and see where it takes you.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, slash the bell, hashtag trophy hunting. Pocono is just a couple days away. By the time you're listening to it, which will be Friday, I suppose Xfinity cars are on the track. Are Xfinity cars racing this weekend?
They are. Yep. All 3 series are running Pocono this weekend.
So, yeah, you'll have some on-track activity a little later today. What happens with the Kaulig 31? Who knows at this point? But Justin Haley is Rick Ware Racing bound. Let's not forget to put a smile on that face and have a great weekend.